So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make Lactobacillus Bacteria Serum. I'll show you step by step exactly how I make it, how to store it, and how to use it in the garden. It's a very versatile product, lots of uses in the home and garden. So let's get into it. Right, so the first step of the process is to harvest the actual bacteria itself. Now, Lactobacillus is extremely abundant. It's on everything. When you make like your comfrey feeds and your stinger nettle feeds, Lactobacillus is on the leaves already, and that's what it is a big part of the process of kind of fermenting and breaking down plant material. So it's an extremely common bacteria. When we actually harvest it from white rice, it's naturally on the rice. So what we need to do is to basically wash the rice like you would if you're going to cook it, and this will wash off the bacteria. It will wash a lot of the starches off of the rice grains themselves, and this will feed the bacteria. But obviously you're going to have a lot of other bacteria in there with it, so the step afterwards is to separate the lactobacillus. But basically, to start with, what I do is I use a 1 litre jug. So I put about 800 or 900 mils of water. Now I do use tap water, but what I do is I either let it sit for a couple of days covered, just to let the chlorine evaporate off, or I boil the kettle and let that cool, because that basically sort of evaporates the chlorine out of the water. Now, I have never weighed the rice before, but for this video, just for your information, I will weigh it just so that you know how much I'm using. But I've basically just been using one of our teacups here, basically about as much as I can get in a scoop out of our little pot that we keep our rice in. So I will just weigh that and see how much it is so I can tell you. So that's basically 240 grams of rice. So once you've got your rice into your container, just give it a real good stir. Now, you know, you can do this as long as you want. I usually do it for 2 or 3 minutes. I have seen other people that will leave it sit for a few hours. I've made a few batches of this now this year. They've all been really successful, and just doing it for a couple of minutes has worked for me. So that's what I'll do now. So there you go, I've been stirring now for 2 or 3 minutes, and the water's gone nice and cloudy. That is basically what you want. That's now a nice starchy water, which will give the bacteria the food it needs to start multiplying and growing. So we just now need to filter this rice out of the water. So you can do that with a funnel, a strainer. I'm just going to use this muslin cloth, which I have here. This is the same thing I use for filtering the serum when it's finished, to get the cheese at the end, which I also eat. I'll show you that part as well. You watch me make a mess here. So I'm basically just going to tip this into the muslin cloth and just hold back the rice as best I can. And that will do. So the reason I do this much serum, I don't need all this amount of water, but the reason I do it is because over the next 3 or 4 days, just mop that up quick before the wife moans. Over the next 3 or 4 days, what you want to see is basically you'll get 3 distinct layers. You'll get some sediment that forms at the bottom of the jug, and you'll get like a scum form on top. And what you want to do is you want to take the liquid from the middle, the nice clear liquid from the middle. So what I do is I do it in this jug, so that gives me a nice space in the middle and a nice open top. And I get in there with a 60 ml syringe. So basically I ordered off Amazon some of these 60 ml syringes, just so I can measure stuff out and move stuff around. And I basically just get the syringe and I suck the liquid out of the middle. You don't want to get the silt or the scum on top. So that just gives me enough room to suck out as much as I need. What I tend to do is when I put it with the milk, I use a 2 litre I think it's 2.2 litres our milk comes in. So I use one of those, and also to that you do it 1 to 10. So I just need to suck out basically 220 mils or something liquid out of the middle. So I'm going to cover this now and let it sit in a sort of room temperature but dark place. So I tend to put it just in my dresser cupboard down the bottom here, but I just cover it with a breathable tissue top and elastic band like that, and that is fine to just sit now for, like I say, 3 or 4 days. It's been a bit cooler. We're sort of into August now, and it's been a bit cooler. It hasn't been particularly warm, so it may take near the sort of 4, possibly 5 day mark. The batches I did through June, when the temperature was a bit hotter, they were ready on the 3rd day, absolutely ready. So it just depends on your ambient temperature, but you're looking at 3 to 5, possibly 6 days if it's cooler, if you're doing it through the winter. But yeah, so that's the first step all done, and I will come back and show you when it's ready to take the liquid out the middle. Right, so it's been 4 days since I did the rice wash, and we've had the separation into 3 layers. So I'll just take the lid off and show you. So as you can see, there's a scum that has formed on top and the clear liquid in the middle, and then at the bottom there's a little bit of sediment down there, and we want to take the liquid out of the middle. You don't really want to get any of the sediment or the scum into the liquid you're taking off. So this is why I make a bit more than I need, because it's then easier for me to just, with the syringe, just get in between the layers down into the middle and take out what I want. So this solution is going to have all sorts of bacteria in it, including the Lactobacillus. And what we now do is we now put this liquid into milk, and the Lactobacillus obviously it'll feed on the lactose in the milk and proliferate, and it gives off lactic acid, which will also help to sort of keep any of the other bacteria and molds at bay. So we're going to proliferate the Lactobacillus and hopefully end up with, just when this is done, we'll have just Lactobacillus serum with a cheese on top. It will divide into 2. So what I'm going to do, I'll just use a whole full pinter. So this is 2.27 litres. So I'm basically going to put 227, I'll do a little bit extra because I've got more than I need, so I'll put about 230 mils into this glass container. So this is a glass jar, like a pasta storage jar type thing, and I'm just going to weigh out, make sure I've got a syringe, but I'm just going to make sure by weighing it, and I'll just go down past the scum and just suck the liquid out of the middle there. And then just squirt that straight into the jar. So the last few batches of this that I've made, I have eaten the cheese that forms on top as well. I keep it in the fridge for up to about a week. It's actually quite a bland tasting cheese, but it's purely because it's so good for your gut. I ate it, and it's quite nice. It doesn't taste of too much. It gets a little bit cheesier as the week goes on, I'll be honest. But like I say, I'll only eat it up to about a week. There's other processes you can do to get it nearer to like a cheddar type of cheese, which I haven't done. I just eat it fresh. So I'm now done with that. That can go on the compost heap or on top of the worm bin or something. Like I say, it's more than I need, but that just allows me to get a nice clean bit of liquid out without getting too much of the scum or the other bits. And now basically what I do is just add the milk in. So again, this jug isn't sterilised or anything, just well washed with hot soapy water. And I put the rice wash water in first, so that as you put the milk in, it just naturally blends it all together. So that's a whole 4 pints of milk, and this is whole milk, just whole milk from the co-op. So that is fine. And then all I do is just put another bit of kitchen roll over the top with an elastic band round and put it back in the cupboard. And this will take, I've found it's quite warm now, so it should be about 4 days, 4 to 5 days, I think, no more than that. And I'll do a little video each day just to show you the differences. The first couple of days you won't really notice anything. By about the 3rd day you'll see little lumps forming on top where the curds are starting to form, and you might see a few little sort of bits of curds around the side, and then it ends up forming a curd that looks like it's going to be really deep, but over the next couple of days that will rise up and you'll end up with about an inch, with this amount, about an inch, inch and a quarter on top. And then I'll strain that with a muslin and basically squeeze the juices out between 2 bowls, and that's the cheese that you can then eat. And then what you're left is the serum, which you can use for the garden, but we'll come back to that when it's done. But that's it for now. This is going back in the dark, room temperature cupboard, and to do its magic. Right, so we're at day 4 and we're just about ready now to strain off the cheese. It's separated nicely, there's no molds or anything, it's not contaminated. Nice clear liquid here, tiny little bit of sediment in the bottom, and then about an inch and a quarter of cheese on top. So what we're going to do now is separate the cheese, strain it, and then put what is a pure Lactobacillus bacteria into a couple of storage containers. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use some fresh. I always keep some fresh in the fridge and just use it fresh for a couple of weeks. And I'm actually going to store some by mixing it 1-to-1 with brown sugar. That will stay in storage at room temperature for a year or 2 apparently. Not that it will probably last that long, but that gives you the option of storing long term the bacteria. So basically what I'm going to do is cut the cheese into a few sections and strain it through a cheesecloth into this big bowl. And this big bowl is also what I use to press the cheese. I put a couple of saucers in there, one upside down, both upside down actually, and I put my 12 kilo kettlebell on top to squeeze it. So that, I'll show you that in a minute. But basically it is a little bit awkward getting the cheese out of this jar, because obviously the neck is thinner than the outer width of the jar here, so it would be nice to have a nice straight jar. And I keep looking at car boots and things, but I haven't found one yet. But this works well anyway. I'll just have to cut it into probably about 6 or 8 slices, and it just makes it a little bit easier to get it out with a slotted spoon. And this cheese is lovely to eat. Like I've said before, it's a bit of a bland cheese, but because you know it's so good for you, you know, I love to just eat it. And it lasts for a week in the fridge. So I'm trying not to break it up. Getting the first bit out is the hardest. Once you've got a bit of space there, it's then easier. And it's amazing the way it forms all these little holes. So what I'll do is I'll press this cheese overnight, just at room temperature. It doesn't need to be in the fridge, I'll just do it at room temperature. And you'll get a bit more of the serum come out of it into this bigger bowl, which you can then keep as well. So there you go, that wasn't too hard. That's basically all the lumps out. There's a few little lumps floating on top, but I've got a funnel with a mesh gauze on it, which I will strain it through anyway. So this is the curds, nice chunky curds, which will be strained, and this is the liquid that we want, the serum. Now what I'm going to actually do is weigh it. So I've got a kilo of sugar, and you want to add 1 to 1 for storing it long term. So I've got a 2 litre kilner jar and a funnel with a gauze in it. This is a funnel I use. It's actually a fuel funnel, but I've never used it. It's clean, and so I suppose the plastic probably isn't food grade, but it's obviously only in it for a few seconds as it's going through it, so I'm sure it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to weigh a kilo. A litre of fluid is usually a kilo, so this container is a 2 litre kilner, so it should work just fine. So this will just get out any of the little bits and any of the sediment and stuff that goes in. Here you go. So that is what I will add the sugar to, so I'll just leave that to drain. There's a few chunks in there, and then I'll just show you what I do. Got so many bits and bobs here. But basically with the curds now, so I'll just give them a good squeeze by hand. And you get a fair bit of liquid coming out. Just twist the cloth and just gently keep squeezing. Obviously my hands are clean, I've washed my hands, and I've sort of washed everything just in hot soapy water. I'm not overly worried about massively sterilising everything. If you squeeze it too hard, you will get little jets fly out the sides. I just felt some fly out the side then, so just do it carefully, otherwise your other half might moan that you've made the whole kitchen smell a bit sort of cheesy. So that's really quite well squeezed. So that's about as much as I'll do it by hand. A little bit more. Okay, and then this bowl, it's always handy to have a bowl with a spout on it so you can save the liquid. Right, and then the way that I've found that works for me to squeeze the curds, so I have 2 saucers, and I'd put that one upside down like that, and the cheese tends to sit within that little rim. So that sits upside down there, and then I just lay the cheese on its side with the muslin cloth wrapped right round, so it's basically sitting on top of the saucer like that. Hope you can see that, like that. And then I put the other saucer upside down on top. You can start it by hand. You can actually press quite hard, and I can hear little jets of liquid coming out. But anyway, what I found, I tried balancing my kettlebell on top, and of course it kept wobbling. So what I found works, and it also helps to keep any little insects out and any dust, is to just get the kettlebell and put one edge on the side of the bowl, and that into the center, and that tea towel just sort of helps to hold everything in place, and that won't move now, so I can leave that overnight. And then what I'll do is I'll do a little video tomorrow just showing you the pressed the pressed cheese. So there, that should be fine. Sorry, I think that's wobbling because the table's so old it's a bit wonky. Right, so that is now drained. So that is the 1 kilo of filtered that I'm going to use with the sugar. So I'll just filter what I've got left that I will keep in the fridge and use fresh. Just see how much I've got of that, so I can see how much I've got out of this batch. I'll just watch the little bit of sediment because I don't want to get too much. There's not really much there at all actually. So it makes quite a good lot of serum, this size batch. So I'm just going to do a little bit more, and then there's a few lumps of sediment at the bottom that I'm actually going to leave. So I will stop there because the rest of that is basically just sediment. So put that out of the way. So that can slowly drip through now. But that, and then we just, that's actually 1.1 kilos. So that gives me over 2 kilos, so over 2 litres of finished product. So that's quite a good batch. Also, I'm doing a batch about every 2 weeks at the moment, purely because I like to eat the cheese and I'm thinking it's good for my gut bacteria. So I like to have a batch of cheese, and I'm using it on the veg garden and sort of everywhere really, all around the veg garden and stuff. I feed it to my chickens in their drinking water, all at 1,000 to 1, so 1 ml per litre. It's good for the gut health of all your animals. You can feed it to your animals. So like I say, I'll give it to my chickens quite regularly, a couple of batches, probably once a week. And I eat the cheese myself and use it all around the garden, and I've even tried it. Our drains get a little bit smelly in the kitchen sometimes, and we put various chemicals and things down them, and I've actually been trying the bacteria. I've heard that you can use it to help with drain smells, and it seems to work, touch wood. I've tried it the last few weeks and it does seem to work. So that's another use for it, and you can use it on pet bedding to reduce smells. It's all sorts of uses for the lactobacillus. It's really quite amazing. So with this, I'm just gonna, you know, I don't know, I've never done it this way before. I've always just used it fresh out of the fridge. This is the first time I'm doing the brown sugar for long-term storage, but basically it's a 1-to-1, so 1 kilo to 1 kilo. I'm just going to add it all and then just keep stirring until it mixes, and this will give the bacteria something to feed on and keep it good for at least up to a year. I can't see it lasting me a year, in all honesty, but it supposedly will last potentially a couple of years or more. So you can use any brown sugar. I was going to use molasses sugar, which is what I tend to use for my ferments. I couldn't find any this week. They'd all sold out. So this is just dark brown sugar. Come on, it's a bit lumpy. Right, there we go. So that's 1 kilo in weight of the serum and 1 kilo of sugar, 1-to-1. And then you just got to stir it until the sugar is completely dissolved. Now I do wonder whether this will sort of try to start fermenting because of the sugar, but apparently it doesn't. Apparently it will stay stable. So we'll see how that goes. I will pop the lid. Or I may actually just put another bit of paper over the top, just to let it breathe for the first week or two. Just in case I don't want any exploding jars on me. And then once it's sort of settled down, I might just put the lid over tight, maybe with a little breathing hole. We'll see. But yeah, in theory this should store for a couple of years. So I'm just going to stir this for a few minutes. Right, so that is stirred enough. There's no more graininess. So I'll just seal that for now. I'll come back to this one, which has got a little bit blocked. There's a few lumps. I just need to gently scrape the filter to get this through. So basically, this serum now is pure Lactobacillus. So as the Lactobacillus feeds on the milk, on the lactose in the milk, it will it gives off lactic acid, which sort of holds back any of the other bacteria and molds and things like that, stops them from coming on and growing. So this, in theory, should be pure Lactobacillus, and that's what we want. Now they do say occasionally you can get a batch that will go bad. It hasn't happened to me yet. I've been fairly lucky, touch wood, with my batches, and they've all come off just like this one has. So, you know, give it a go. It couldn't be more simpler really to do, with basic kitchen equipment, a bit of white rice and some milk. Really simple. But what I'll do is I'll take some of this down to the Smallholding, and I'll show you how I use it in the garden. That's just about through now. There's just a few lumps of the cheese that blocked up the filter. There we go. So that's it. So I mean, that's one batch. What did it take? Just over a week, about 8 days. About 8 days to make. And that will last me, so this fresh, I keep it sealed and I put it in the fridge, and I pop the jar every day, even though it's in the fridge, and it should all shut down and sort of go a bit dormant. I still just pop the jar, just like that. Just pop the jar each day, just in case. And I might do the same. I might actually leave that sealed and just give it a little pop once or twice a day. But if I hear of air as I open it, I may then just put a bit of tissue on just to let it breathe. Because just in my mind, doing this, I would have thought it would have wanted to ferment a little bit, but apparently it doesn't, and you can put it in sealed jars. But I just might take that precaution of just putting a bit of paper on top. But anyway, so there you go. That's basically a 2 litres of milk, bit of rice wash, and you've got a whole load of Lactobacillus there that, you know, even on a garden my size down the Smallholding, this will last me a good couple of weeks. And this, you know, the rest of the season easily. I'll probably use it by the winter, but I just wanted to give it a go and see how it works. But and the cheese, like I say, that's the sort of leftovers of the process, but it's good to eat, very good for your gut. And also anything that I haven't finished after about 5 to 7 days, it does start to smell quite cheesy by the end of the week. When it first starts, there's a bit of a cheesy smell, and it's tasting very mild. But as the days go on, even obviously I'll keep it in the fridge once I finish pressing it, but it does get a slightly cheesy tang to it. And I've never taken it that extra process. There's other things you can do. You can kind of pasteurize it and stuff, and you can press it harder so it becomes more like a cheddar cheese. It's such a small amount, really. It makes a little disc about that big. I just don't bother. I'll use it for, like I say, 5, 6, 7 days, and then I feed it to the chickens. Anything that's left, and they love that direct. But like I say, use this in your chicken water. Any animals, you can put it in the water. It's great for gut health, and obviously the cheese is great for your gut health. But yeah, so that's it for now. All done, and I'll show you the cheese in the morning, and I'll show you how to use the serum next. So guys, just quickly, I'm only a small channel. obviously, and if you wouldn't mind just taking the time to just give this video a thumbs up, that will really help me out. And if you're enjoying the channel, if you're enjoying any of my videos and you're getting anything from it at all, please feel free to subscribe. It all helps the channel to grow. And why not share the video with your gardening buddies? Share the video about, and that also would help me out and be very much appreciated. Thank you very much. So anyway, on with the bacteria. The way I use it, I bring a little bit down in a jar, a clean jar, just a little bit, what I need for the day, and then I have these 60ml syringes that I bought off of Amazon. I think I got 10 for about £5 or something, and they're reusable. I just wash them out and use them again and again. And what I do is, for everything that I do, I use it at 1 to 1000. So these are 14 litre cans, so basically just suck up 14 mils roughly. So that's that much to a 14 litre can. What I usually do is put it in the can when it's empty, and then put the water into it out of my IBC, and that mixes it for me. I'll just do it like this for now. So that is now mixed and ready to go. This can be used as a soil drench. I also put it on my compost, all sorts of different things. You can water it onto anything. You can put the rows on and water it straight over the plants, get all the leaves covered in it as well. Or you can also spray it on, I'll show you that in a minute, at the same dilution rate. Now, what Lab does, I mean, it's just got so many uses. I'm going to miss something out. I'm not going to be able to cover it all in this little bit of talking here. But basically, what I've sort of researched and learned is that the reason I'm using it is it just helps. It's a plant growth bacteria. It basically helps the growth of plants by breaking down composts and any fertilizers that you put on or that are naturally in the soils. It breaks them down into a more soluble, plant usable form. So by soil drenching, if you put mulches round, or if you've used organic chicken pellets, anything like that, it helps to break that down into a form that the plant can directly use. It just makes it more bioavailable. And also it's supposed to keep any soil-borne pests and diseases sort of in check. It helps with any pathogens, things like that, just to keep everything in check. And this is the reason why I also apply it to the leaves. So things like my pumpkins, I always get powdery mildew on the leaves of my pumpkins. So what I'm trying this year is to, every week on a Sunday, I bring some Lab down and I foliar spray the leaves of all my pumpkins and squashes. And I'm just going to see if that makes any difference, because every single year they get really bad powdery mildew. So just, you know, what it's supposed to do is, if you foliar apply it, it will outcompete any other molds and funguses that are on the leaf itself. It kind of just outcompetes it all and holds them at bay, supposedly. Like I said, it's my first year using it, so I'm just going to see how it goes. But what I've also been doing is putting it on my compost. Every time I put a good load of grass clippings and wood chip and other vegetable wastes on there, I just make a can up and just give it a water over, and this helps to activate the compost and get everything breaking down. So lots and lots of uses. I'll just show you a few of them quickly now. So you can just leave the rows off and just soil drench around the plant or potted plants. When I'm doing things like my kales, I like to leave the rows on, and this way I get all the foliage and all the bed, gives everything a good coating. There you go. So one can quite easily does a couple of beds. So what I do with my pumpkins, these are my giant Deals Atlantic pumpkins, and all my other squashes, every Sunday I'll give these a whole 14 litre can each of molasses and Lactobacillus, a soil drench, and I'll also foliar spray all the leaves. So I literally just give them a good spraying all over. It's getting a bit of a jungle in here now. I have to be careful what I'm standing on, but just give them a real good spray all over, and I'm hoping that this will hold the sort of leaves in good stead later into the season, so that I can get as much growth out of them as possible. So I had a mowing morning this morning, topped up with 7 120 litre bags of grass. put my wood chip over the top so I get my browns and my greens. And what I tend to do, not every time but most times, is just get a can, 14 litre can with the rose on, and just give it a good mix all over of the bacteria. So I do all the front and then go around the sides and the back and just see if that helps to break my compost down a bit faster and a bit better. So I also put it in my poultry water. So I topped the drinkers up yesterday. These hold 20 litres, so I just put 20 mils in and then top it right to the top with fresh water. And this helps with the chicken's gut bacteria, helps to keep them in good condition, and they don't seem to mind it at all. So lots of uses for the old Lactobacillus. It really almost seems too good to be true, but it is a very numerous bacteria. It's on everything. It's on every living thing, every plant, every animal. So it's on us. It's everywhere. So just putting extra amounts of it into the areas where you specifically want it. It can't do anything but help, right? So we're almost done. I know I'm waffling on a little bit. One other thing that I'm thinking of trying with it, so what I started doing just a couple of weeks ago or so was watering some molasses water onto my worm beds, and it has definitely worked. I wasn't too sure. I've since looked online and I've read about other people doing it, because it obviously feeds the microbes and it helps to encourage all the microbes and bacteria that the worms themselves then feed on. So what I'm thinking is I could put this onto the worm beds too. I may not just do it on all. I'll just try one little patch, see what happens. But I might just try putting a bit of the solution onto half of the outdoor bed and just see what happens. I like to do these things and just see if things make any difference. You know, trial and error. That's how I like to sort of learn. But anyway, nearly done, guys. All that remains is to show you the cheese, which I'll do tomorrow morning. But I hope you've enjoyed the video so far anyway. I hope you're hanging around to see the end result with the cheese. It is awesome. It's a really nice product, and it's so good for your gut health. Like any fermented foods, they're all the sort of Lactobacillus types of bacteria. There's different types, I think, within the genus of Bacillus, but they're all that type, and they're so good for your stomach. It's really a great thing to eat and to include in your diet. So we'll see you in the morning. Right, so we're the next morning. The cheese has spent all night with the 12 kilo kettlebell on it. So let's get it out and have a look. So it's basically looking like a little flat disc now. And there should be a bit of the serum in the bottom there, so that's what's pressed out of it. So that's a little bit more serum to go in the pot. Let's get out the cheesecloth. You do tend to get a little bit that will stick to the cheesecloth. Every time I've done it so far, I've had a few little chunks just stick. Yeah, it's doing it again. So just sort of peel it out. But you'll get a few bits just cling on. They come off in the wash. So there you go. Yeah, a few little bits stick to it, but like I say, that comes off in the wash. So obviously I haven't got a proper cheese press, so it does sort of come out slightly funny shapes sometimes, depending on where the sort of knot is and the twisty bit. But it's basically sort of a slightly rubbery texture. Doesn't necessarily look particularly appetizing, but it's actually really nice. So it slices quite well, and I've just been sort of using it, you know, put it in my sausage sandwich or something. I have it just as a cheese, as you would cheese and pickle, cheese sandwiches, whatever. It isn't the cheesiest of cheese. Slightly sort of cheesy, or almost old socky smell a little bit. It's not the nicest cheese smell, but it tastes fine, and I've been eating it, I would say, the past few weeks. But it's just not the cheesiest of cheese. But I haven't tried it with salt yet. A few people say a little bit of salt makes it better, so I'll just try a little pinch of sea salt. Actually, that works really well. A little bit of sea salt's nice. But like I said before, this is very good for your gut bacteria, very good for your gut health. I'm just being honest, it's not the nicest cheese in the world. It is a bit bland and a little bit rubbery. But it's one of those things, I like to eat it because I know it's so good for my stomach. And I do get a little bit of sort of irritable bowel at times. So I try to do the sort of sauerkrauts and things like that. So I just make use of this, and I make a batch about every 2 weeks. It gives me more than enough really for the garden. That's why I put it on my compost and things like that, because I have plenty of the serum. But it's just so this bit of cheese will last me, like I've said, 5 to 7 days at most. It does get a bit stinky then, and I do wonder whether it's starting to go off. So I make a second batch like a week later. But I just basically cover that, put it in the fridge, and use it for the next week. 5 days to 7 days, something like that. No more I wouldn't. But anyway, that's it. Give it a go, guys, and enjoy your cheese. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. Take it easy.